Good morning, everybody. Denise and I were just remarking that we are super impressed with the number of people that are still attending sessions
Yeah,
here in Miami while it is
absolutely.
super nice out. And
You're tempting them, Andy. Don't
I
leave.
I am here to tell you that on behalf of SIIA, you all get a new car. Um, Go see Ken Wash and
Tell him
tell
Andy
him
promised. Andy
that you
promised.
you get a new car and see how Ken reacts to that, because I think that would be very interesting. My name is Andy McLaughlin. I am the president and CEO of a company called PaperClip Communications. PaperClip is a company that has two divisions, one that works with K through 12 and one that works with higher education. We focus on the non-academic side of the campus, which means we work with health, wellness, safety, security, and compliance. Basically, anything that happens outside of the classroom, we focus on that side of the campus. I founded the company about 20 years ago. We are a small company comprised of about 14 employees, which is important for today's discussion because it contrasts very nicely with Denise's company, which is what I would call a big company.
We're really a medium company, but a lot of companies here are big
Well,
companies. I'm sort of a medium.
those are
Yeah.
like really
Oh,
big
okay.
companies. As we go through the presentation today, Denise is going to give you a lot of the metrics that they produce, and I'm going to provide some contrast in terms of kind of the metrics that we're able to produce as a much smaller company, and how we use those. Denise, if you want to take a second
Sure.
to kind
Yeah.
of introduce yourself.
Yeah, really quickly, just for those of you who were just here, I apologize. But Kiplinger is a family-owned business, been around since 1923. We have two business publications, which total about 200,000 in circulation, two consumer newsletters, which total about 100,000 in circulation, and one consumer magazine, Kiplinger's Personal Finance, which has 600,000 circulation, which means we have about 900,000 total active paid buyers. These are subscribers who pay us money. 700,000 consumers, 200,000 business type people, whether they're reading it at work or reading it at home, they are business people. And this is where the rubber meets the road on metrics, and this is the difference between Andy's business and mine. We mail 13.2 million pieces of direct mail, and we have to do that smartly or we bankrupt ourselves. So this is why metrics is so critical to my business. 5.4 million pieces go to consumers, 7.8 million pieces to businesses, at least 21 million emails, and we cross-sell heavily, which is how we get a lot of our subscribers. So I'm going to start with the basics.
So I want to talk just a little bit about, what do metrics really mean, before Denise kind of jumps into what she measures and why. So, what do metrics mean? What do they mean for us at PaperClip? At PaperClip, metrics are really kind of the breadcrumbs that we use to create a trail that lead us somewhere. Metrics combined with customer feedback for us are what we use to create product development. So any kind of information, data that we can pull out of a system combined with customer feedback are what we use to create any kind of new product. And as Denise goes through some of her slides, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to talk about exactly how we do that. Metrics also lead us to budgets and models.
You have budgets? I didn't think you had budgets.
I write stuff down on like cocktail napkins and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Okay. All right.
and then the new thing for us is we scan it into a computer.
Get out.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
very
Wow.
high tech
All
these
right.
days at PaperClip.
Super.
But the most important metric at PaperClip is ROI. So, one of the things, and I talk with a lot of companies, a lot of people dive down very deep into a lot of different kinds of metrics, but when I talk to people, one of the things that I always go is that one of the things that I always say is, okay, but did you make any money on that? Like, you've got really sophisticated data. Did you make any money?
And that's a very interesting contrast from my business, for example, which I have different missions for different products. So, and it's not that I don't want to make money, don't get me wrong, but some of my mission on a product may be I need to rapidly grow our magazine, for example. I need to rapidly grow circulation in the magazine because I'm making a lot more money in ad sales. And I may be completely fine with losing money to get those people. So my ROI is underwater. I'm negative on ROI, but my mission is to grow audience. So it really, Andy's all ROI, whereas I have different missions. And you'll see that as I go through some of my examples, that it really sort of depends. So your metrics don't mean a thing to you if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish.
What your goal is.
Yeah, so set your goal. I need to make $1.20 for every dollar I invest, or I need to bring in 8,000 new bodies. Which is it, and how much are you willing to spend to do that? And then you measure. So
we use our metrics to build workable, profitable business models, and we build those business models out of the metrics that our systems can deliver. And I think as you hear Denise and I talk, as a small company, our systems are a little bit more kind of sticks and glue put together because we can't quite afford some of the more expensive systems that big companies can afford.
We still use sticks and glue too sometimes, so I'll show you some of that.
Which brings me to my next point, and I think Denise and I talked about this when we talked about this this presentation, is to occasionally audit your metrics and your reports. Yeah. Because sometimes they're giving you data and feedback that isn't, I hesitate to say accurate.
You don't know what's actually coming out in that report. And I'll give you a quick example. Our senior circulation manager on the magazine who reported to me left after 20 years. And so we promoted her assistant. There's some things her assistant doesn't know. There were things that I wasn't involved in. And so we hired a consultant to help us with this one small piece of the business on budget and modeling the circulation for the magazine, so we're not under rate base and our subscribers don't get mad. We wanted to make sure we had that super covered. And she said, well, show me your renewal rate reports and let's get those plugged in. So we pull up what we've been reporting to management as our renewal rate reports, and they're like, here they go. And she looks at me and she goes, you can't use these. And I said, what do you mean we can't use these? This is what I've been using. And she said, oh, these include, comp copies, this. And she listed off about 4 reasons why my renewal rate reports, which I happen to be running an R1067 or some nonsensical number out of our fulfillment system. She said, oh, you can't use an R1067. You have to use the R1068B. And I'm like, well, who the hell knew that? Well, she knew that. So I was actually surprised that this report that I've been using and I thought was right, it wasn't wrong, it was just different than I thought it was. It included bodies I didn't know were in there, it included non-revenue generating bodies, it included non-auditable bodies. It was not what I needed to use. So it's a good report, it's just not, and it's fine for what we were using. It was just the wrong one for the situation, David. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, right. You're going to, right. One of my analysis that I'm going to show you here is the value of a buyer from your other products. So what's one subscriber worth to you? So I'll show you, it's a quick and dirty spreadsheet that you can do yourself as to what the value of your subscribers are. So yeah, absolutely, I'll show you that.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about the value of a product and what we can see in identifying a product and chasing a product, not necessarily a buyer. So I think you might see some answers there. So Denise has a ton of data, and we want to get to that data.
And we're going to talk back and forth, and interrupt us, please.
Yeah,
because
please
it's
do.
the last session of the day, and
Right.
you know we need to keep this, or we're all going to pass out. So very quickly, I'm just going to go through the basics, and this is really what I'm going to be talking about. I could spend days on email metrics, so we're going to do that very large. We do pre-cons on this the last half a day on how to understand your email marketing. You can do a week's worth of training on web analytics. So I decided purposely not to talk about web analytics. It's way too complicated to cover in 45 minutes. But if you would like some more information on that, I have lots of people on my staff who would be happy to spend time with you on it if you have questions. So the first thing is circulation. We are a paid circulation publication. Many of you may be trade publications and not paid circulation, but circulation is circulation, right? Bodies who read your magazines. So of course you want to track circulation levels. We want to track our revenue per subscriber. We want to track our ancillary revenue per subscriber, and this is what David was getting at. What is that person that I bring in the door for my publication? In my case, it's typically the magazine where they have a $10 introductory offer. So that's my, I hate to even use the word loss leader because it's really not the case, but that's my lowest intro point into getting bodies in my door. And then I want to know what else they buy from us. And crossover analysis, which also tells you what your subscribers are buying and most interested in your company, and their value to you after they do their initial purchase or after they do their initial subscription. And then of course renewal rates, to make sure your editorial mission is fulfilling your marketing promise. Okay, and that was the renewal rate report that I was telling you about that I was surprised included all these people that really wasn't supposed to. So Andy, anything on this one you can?
Only to explain that PaperClip's business model is completely different. We no longer have any subscription-driven revenue. We are a completely one-off company. We believe we have renewable customers, but no more renewable products. We do about 125 paid webinars per year. We have we produce about 12 binder products per year. We have brochure products that we sell in bulk, and all of our product making decisions are driven by some metric of response to a metric driven by marketing response. And again, as Denise shows some information, I'll talk about how we make those decisions.
So the first one I want to talk to sort of kills two birds here. It kills the circulation level and the revenue per sub, and I like to look at it this way, and I like to look at it historically, and I generated a BS report. This is basically the same report format that I use at a high level glance, and so what I've done here, and I want to point out a couple things to you. So starting with whatever era you want to start with, 2002 is a nice number for me. So 2002 to the end of 2013, last issue, how many subscribers we had, and 2002, how many we have now. What is my variance year over year? And I'll tell you in a second why this is the number to be most concerned about, as well, not the only number, as well as what the earned circulation was. We report on an earned basis, not a cash. You may be cash, you may be controlled circ, and you may not even have this number. But in our case, if you buy a $12 publication from me, I earn $1 every month. Every time I fulfill an issue, I earn $1. So it sort of trails what happened the previous year. So I do a ton of direct mail in December. I'm going to earn all that money out in the following year. So it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the profitability of that publication, because all of my expense goes into one year and all of my earnings go into the next. Complicated. I'm happy to explain that to you further if you wish. But so this is what I earned based on the number of subscribers that I had, and this is my earnings per subscriber, which is obviously just one divided into the other. So there's a couple things here, and I can't remember where I did these slides recently, so I can't remember how many arrows I have, so you may have to forgive me. So here's a big thing to look at. You got a huge variance here. Now, at the time, right now, looking back, that's one thing. But at the time this happened, you should know exactly why that happened. So you're big, you're wanting to look at that and say, how do we lose 22,000 subscribers? Well, what exactly happened? Well, okay, so let's say that happened because, and in addition to that, my earnings per subscriber jumped from $132 to $206. What happened? Price increase. There you go. Thank you. We raised our prices. We raised our prices by apparently a good number and lost this many bodies, but gained 70 some bucks per person. Now, what did we expect to happen? What did we budget to happen? I hope that's what we expected, and I hope there was a reason behind it, and I hope that was a good idea, and I hope we're happy with what happened. But so that's a very, so it's things like that. And if I had seen this and not seen this, the 206 bucks, I'd have been sweating. If I was still at $132 and lost 22,000 subscribers, my business is in trouble. So that's sort of a delayed red flag. So you may want to do this monthly. This is sort of a big picture. You can do this monthly. Revenue earned, bodies. Depending on your business, you could do it weekly, you could do it daily. We don't have dailies. So here's another one. So here was my, big jump here. All of a sudden we have a big jump here. $227.85, and we lost 2,000 subscribers. Clearly another price increase, maybe not so dramatic. Lost a few bodies along the way, but we're already down to a core number of people. We're already burned down to 60,000 subscribers from 83 and our high of 95. So we have burned off some people who are obviously unwilling to pay a higher price. But is that what you wanted to happen? Is that actually proving to be the case? Is that what you plan to do? So, really this is an important metric to understand if your plans on a price increase are working the way you expected, or is there some disaster that you're just figuring out? Okay, Andy, do you have anything?
No.
Okay, so that's my earnings per subscriber and my year-end CIRC levels. We also do an ancillary revenue, and this sort of, David, is to your point. We do an ancillary revenue per subscriber and year-end circulation. So it's the same chart, number of subscribers, same chart. What did I get on list rental income? So I rent my mailing list, I rent my email list, I rent whatever bodies you're measuring here. What do I bring in on that? What do I bring in on webinar attendees? Then I can attribute back to these bodies. I know you can't, I can't guarantee, and maybe this is just a portion of your revenue. And, I'd love to have $1.7 million in webinar revenue, but I don't. Live events, same thing. Can you attribute your live event revenue back to these core people? Go ahead, Meg. Well, see, we don't have what I would call like a site license business. We don't have much of a site license business. So you would have to pick what your, you would have to fit your business model sort of into this. In our case, these are consumers or individuals, So if you're mostly a site license business, then I think you can do the same thing, but you may have to weight it. There may have to be some, if there's 150 people in one site license and 200 in another, maybe you count them as 250 people.
Well, we have everything in Salesforce.
Right.
We can pull this
At the company level? Okay. Yeah.
This is at the individual level.
This is based on publication, or product that I'm selling. So if I'm talking about subscribers to, let's say, one of our investment newsletters, and I know that I have investment webinars that are right in that same topic area, and I know that I have live events that are right in that same topic area, and I get some outside people, I understand that, but the majority of the bodies that are coming and buying and attending these various events are core to this group of buyers, this market. Then I attribute it back to that product. So this is, what I'm calling subscribers, buyers to a particular product. So very simple math. I ascribe all the different revenue channels that have to do with this product back onto these subscribers, and I come up with a revenue per subscriber number. So again, this gives me, if I am worried about profit, I'm having trouble growing my subscription, I can actually factor in what the value of one more person, in my case, is going to be if I bring them in the door. These are wildly high numbers. So this is sort of making that up. Typically, I'm at the $4 or $5, $7 or $8, you know, because of the type of products we offer. So for me, these are very high numbers. So here we have, you know, quite a jump from $197 to $206 per person. Maybe the following year I should do more direct mail, because all of a sudden I'm getting real value. And where am I getting the value? Events. Our events are doing so good, our reports are doing so good, that I should invest more heavily in finding more of these buyers so I can bring more money in here, because these people are highly valuable to me, every single body. And like I said, these are very inflated numbers for my business, but you may have live event businesses that do bring in big bucks per person. Anything there, Andy?
So again, where, you know, we're not a subscription-driven business anymore, we're an ancillary business, and we sell into the higher education space, so we might be selling to Seton Hall University. Well, we look at Seton Hall University, A, as an enterprise, and then B, as having multiple buyers at that enterprise. We track Seton Hall University as a buyer, and then we track the individual buyers at Seton Hall. And so we track very similar data in terms of how much is Seton Hall spending annually, and then who are the individual buyers at Seton Hall. And as a metric, we see that moving. We see those data points moving, and it's driven us to make a decision overall where we now realize that direct marketing is not the most effective tool for us moving forward, that we really need to move into Salesforce to get Seton Hall together and say, you know, move the needle from, you know, Seton Hall is spending $5,000 a year with us. We really need to get them to spend $8,000 to $10,000 a year with us. So that's what the metrics are telling us. And that's a major initiative for PaperClip right now. So tracked in a very sort of similar way.
Mm-hmm. But with an entirely different business model. So you can wedge your model in to make this work for you. So this is my crossover analysis, and this looks complicated, but it also tells you something about your business. And this doesn't have to be publication by publication. It could be webinar by webinar. I'm sure Andy does something like this. So it's, if I bring someone in, and this is my way to build sort of a business case and justify investing in particular publications. So in this case, I am talking about a low-priced publication that we have, and I want to know, for every person in this low-priced publication, how many also take a high-priced publication, how many take a medium-plus price publication, and how many take a medium-priced publication. So I sort of explained it this way because otherwise it's terribly confusing. I was trying to put the ABCs in, and I'm like, oh, this is like algebra. So what this shows me is, out of the low-priced publication, I have 15,000 subscribers, buyers, whatever you'd like to call them, that also take our high-priced publication, which is 2.7% of the high-priced publication, which has a circulation of only 68,000, but it's 2.7% of our low-priced publication, which has a circulation of 563, but it's 41% of our low-priced circulation. So this low-priced, this is why I said it was algebra. This high-priced publication, 41% of these people come from this publication, or they have this publication in common. It's very likely, because of the amount of marketing you have to do to keep a subscriber base in the 500s going, they came in first here, and we have been upselling and upselling and upselling. So there is a good business case to actually lose money on this low-priced publication when you first bring them in, because you're going to sell 43,000 of your medium priced. You're going to sell 25,000 of your medium plus priced, your mid-range, and you're going to sell 15,000 of your high priced pubs. So this is your way to look at your business and say, can I afford a loss leader? If I can afford a loss leader, or I can afford deeper investment, where should I put it? If I ran this same analysis, picked the high price, stuck it over here, you know, you would see the same matches, but it sort of skews where they came from. So you do have to do a little digging into what was the first order date? So I can pull the 15,000 bodies and find their first order with us. And where was it? And I can guarantee you that about 12.5 out of those 15,000, their first order came on these low price pubs. So this is my case for why I should go deeper and spend more money into building my low priced pub so I can make good money on all these higher priced pubs. Andy, do you do?
We don't do loss leaders.
You refuse. Okay, so you're a straight ROI, right? If
Yeah.
it doesn't make money, you don't do it at all.
We kill it as quickly as we can.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andy's a slaughterhouse. All right, so
Well, we had that discussion.
I know Andy's twisting their little necks and throwing them off to the side. No chance to resuscitate them. All right, so this is my crossover analysis, and like I said, depending on your business and depending on what it is that you do, you can create a metrics very similar to this and create a business case for investing more heavily in one product than another. You know, but it takes some digging. It's all available in your circulation systems. It may be complicated to get to, but it's well worth that effort. Renewal rates. This is very simply what we look at. So I look at so this is all the particular bases. I might see now I'm going left-handed, Sergio. It's my fault. I'm sorry. So now so I take all of our bases: June 14, May 14, April 14. How many people were in the base? How many people were eligible to renew? How many people actually did renew? You know, first month renewal rate, and then a 12-month rolling average. Some people do a 3-month rolling average. I don't find the 3-month rolling averages to be terribly helpful, so I tend to use a 1 month to point out problems. So here, August of 13, 4,300 people, 234 renewed, 5%. We've had 32%, 34%, 29%, 30%. What happened? Now, I have to tell you, in a company like Kiplinger, where we hire professional fulfillment vendors to send renewal notices, what I'm about to say typically doesn't happen. But in smaller businesses, this happens. And it happened in a business that I worked in early in my career. Hired a new person, and actually, Greg, it happened in a business you were in. Hired a new person that got completely overwhelmed with their job, didn't want to tell anybody, and just didn't send out the renewal notices. Just pretended they sent out the renewal notices. Well, and I'm sure that's the way the fulfillment systems come in, where, they can't ascribe you to a notice, so they put you in the most recent one. Whatever you should have actually gotten, those fulfillment systems will drop you in. So these 1 month renewal reports should be an early warning sign to a big problem. Are your telemarketers not calling? Did someone decide that they were overwhelmed with their work and threw them away? At one of the companies I had, we had a woman she was brand new, totally overwhelmed with data entry, and instead of keying in the orders, was just shoving them in the back of her desk. And we finally fired her for some other reason, and we're cleaning out her desk, and there was stacks of orders, and fortunately they were bill-me's. They didn't have checks attached to them, but she wanted to go home at night, and she thought she had to get these done and couldn't tell anybody she was being overwhelmed and was hiding them. So they could have been renewals in there. So you really have to look at anomalies within your renewal rates quickly, and that's why I use the 1 month. I look at anomalies quickly and say, did we not send out gift renewals? What is going on? Why am I tanking here? So you need to look at anomalies quickly so you can solve this problem. You should be able to go back and fix this problem and get this back up in the 20s at least. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, we look at a rolling 1 year, and unfortunately, this one is trending down terribly, and I created that on purpose. But you'll see that from April of 13 to June of 14, we went from a 37% renewal rate down to a 27% 12-month renewal rate. What did you do? Did your editorial change? Did you actually change editors? Did you change renewal series? Did you test a renewal series and go, or did you not test a renewal series and just roll out a new renewal series and you've just tanked your rates? So these are all very good indicators that there's something wrong with your business, and you have to find out what's wrong with your business.
So, in a very similar but different way, we look at annually our renewable customer, and we look at their spend rate. You know, what did Seton Hall spend last year, and what did they spend this, you know, in the same period this year? And we will ascribe similar percentages. Unfortunately, because we are a topic-driven business now, we can't pin it down to something as simple
It might have been
as
the bird flu was hot, and so it was a
right.
peak. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we're hosting a webinar today that has like a couple of hundred people on it because it's on a very, very hot topic. So we can't pin it down to something as simple as, well, we didn't send the renewal notices out. But over a long timeline, we should be hitting hot topics, you know, annually over a long timeline. But it's a very, very similar model that we should be getting the same number of dollars from an institution over a long timeline.
And if that number is sliding overall, then you're in trouble.
If it's sliding overall, then you know where your business is trending.
Right. Then you have a bigger problem.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So here's the second sort of set of metrics I'm going to talk about. And this one I'm going to go pretty quick because Andy's got a lot to talk about on email, or more than I do anyway, and how he uses it. So for emails, we really rely on our email service provider to measure the opens. And we also drop people off our email file if they haven't opened an email from us in a year. If they haven't opened an email, we put them aside, don't email to them. It improves our sender score. The rest of them get delivered much better. We track our clicks, we track our unsubscribes, we track our complaints. That's really what we use through our vendor. And then, of course, on the back end, we always track how many did we sell and how many people took us up on it, and how much did it cost us to actually get this order. So that's the easy part. I'm going to show you really quickly what our email service provider, you probably have this dashboard or some version of this dashboard with your email service provider. If you're not using one, you're doing something in-house, I would suggest professional email service providers are brilliant at getting you off blacklist, deliverability issues. So I would suggest you start talking to some vendors. So this was an email that we sent out for a webinar we did, how to get more done in the time you have. And basically, you know, like I said, what all we're really looking for in this particular, you know, with email promotions is how many opens. So we had a 21.8% open rate. How many click-throughs? Only a 0.8%. Page hits, we don't track through our ESP. We don't put the pixels in the email and track the landing pages because we do that on our web analytics side. So we don't do that through our ESP. How many unique opens? 44,000. How many unique click-throughs? 1,400. So nice numbers to know. We track that very much in sort of the same way. You know, we kind of check out averages, see if anything's unusual. But the really big things to especially pay attention to is how many unsubscribes you get, which tells you if you are bombarding people, if your subject line was a little too salacious or pushy or whatever, and then how many complaints, which is really where you get people who are telling Yahoo this is spam. They're telling Yahoo this is spam, they're telling AOL this is spam. If you have too many of those, Yahoo says this is spam, I'm turning off at Kiplinger.com, and then your deliverability goes to hell, and you have to call your ESP, and you have to work through a whitelisting process to get you back being delivered to Yahoo. So this is really just the front end. On the back end, it's, you know, how many people actually got to the store and bought it, and then of course the math on how much did it cost me to get that order. And on emails, they're very inexpensive. For us, they don't provide the volume we need, so we use it as part of our marketing mix. It's not a majority of our marketing mix. But Andy, you use email quite differently.
Yeah, it's become our email system and our email promotions have become a major driver of our product development program. They almost have become a real-time feedback method for product development, and so I'll share kind of a case study. Um, in fact, the webinar that I was talking about that we're running today. Has anybody heard of Yik Yak? So I've got one person who's heard of Yik Yak, two people who have heard of Yik Yak. So Yik Yak is an anonymous social media tool that was developed specifically for colleges and universities, and it's a geocentric social media tool, which means that the programmers set it up with kind of a pin drop in the center of, and since I've used Seton Hall as an example, they've set it up with a pin drop in the center of Seton Hall University, and it has a 1.5 mile activity zone around that pin drop, meaning that you have to be within 1.5 miles of that pin drop to be active on Yik Yak. And again, it's anonymous. So you can go on Yik Yak anonymously while you're on the campus of Seton Hall, and you can say anything you want about anybody you want on the campus of Seton Hall. So obviously this is a really healthy way to communicate about people on college campuses. And I'm sure you can imagine that all the college students are just saying the most positive things about their fellow students. So it's become quite a problem for college campuses, and there's a lot of cyberbullying and really quite worse things going on there. In fact, there have been a number of actual threats of violence and things like that going on. So we responded by creating a webinar about 7 weeks ago. And, you know, sometimes you think something's going to be a hot topic, you know, sometimes you never know. We sent the initial, we start email sending at 6 in the morning. It's a process that we have a very unique way of sending our emails. There are 4,500 college campuses in the, you know, basically North America, but our email lists are comprised of about 100,000 names. And what the challenge is there is that you can't send 100,000 emails all at once, because if you hit Seton Hall's servers all at once, they will immediately identify you as spam, because you're hitting them with, you know, 600 emails all at once, and so they'll say, well, that's clearly spam. Even if they've been opted in, they'll say that's spam, so you can't do that. So we have all of these emails identified into all these buckets, and so we do our email sending. We hire a person to do them individually in buckets of about 1,000 people each, and we start at 6 in the morning and we send them through. And we can see in real time through our email service how the opens are going. And in real time, we can see how a subject line is doing. And based on how a subject line is doing and the open rate on a subject line, we can virtually identify whether a topic is hot enough to develop further product down the line. And the Yik Yak subject line had a 10% open rate, which for us is an extraordinarily high open rate. So by noon, that day, we had already put into motion the development of a binder product because we knew that the Yik Yak webinar would probably draw anywhere between 150 and 200 registrants for the webinar, which is a very successful webinar for us. And if we knew that, we knew that we would probably be able to sell 100 to 120 binders. And so we put the binder into production, editorial production, by noon that day. And so that's a way that we're using a metric in real time to accelerate the production process. And that's the kind of intelligence and feedback that we're using metrics with that, you know, we certainly were not doing 4 years ago or 5 years ago. You know, as opposed to another hot topic that I thought would be really good was our campus card systems, which have become this very complex thing because they've become debit cards and your ID, and they open your door, and they're subject to identity theft and all these other things. That email subject line had like a 1% open rate. And so by noon that day, I had canceled the webinar. And so, as Denise said, we
their little necks.
We snap their little necks and we throw them away. You know, again, based on real-time feedback from the metrics.
So Andy's company being smaller, not much smaller, but being smaller, moves a lot faster than larger organizations, and certainly faster than our organization does. So I'm going to roll through this fairly quickly. We don't have a lot of time, and I'm going to blow through this. So if you have additional follow-up on this, I'd be really happy to talk to you about it. We also do quite a bit of direct mail. And so our basic direct mail metrics are how many pieces were sent, what response rate did we get, gross as well as net, which is after pay up, what was our credit percent, how many people wanted to bill me, and or even if you don't offer a bill me, how many people didn't send money but still tried to order, what your pay up was on that credit, what choice did they take in your offer. If you gave them a choice of an offer, like a 1-year or 2-year deal, what they actually take, what your gross dollars were, what your net dollars were, who did you send it to, and what description do you have of that, and then how was the profitability of that campaign overall. And like I said, I'm going to move a little quickly on this. This is our sample promotional report. It's a nightmare. I know it looks like a nightmare. This is what comes out of our fulfillment vendor. It's actually very simple to read once you know, and yours is going to look different, so I'm not going to bore you with every single column. But pretty much everything that's here, almost everything that's here, is on here. The parts that aren't on there are the campaign profitability. I could add that. That's just another sort of hassle for me, so I tend to like to use sticks and glue in the form of Excel. Because of the way our fulfillment vendor makes you load costs, it's just more trouble than it's worth. But pretty much everything else that's on here is here. And if you don't have a fulfillment vendor that can provide you the level of detail and analysis you need, you can either use sticks and glue or you need to find a new fulfillment vendor. List analysis, which is kept by our list brokers. They do this for me. You can do this for yourself. It basically tells you the life of a list that you've used. And I pulled up Condé Nast portfolio because it doesn't exist anymore. But sort of as a, you know, a zoom in a little bit, when we mailed it, what the key code was, what the list was, what the segment was, how many names did we rent, how many names mailed, how many came out of merge purge, and what our gross response rate was. And this is down to the nitty gritty list level. You know, I took men who bought between January and March of 2008, and I'm going to assume that that segment, that exact same segment in 2009 is going to perform the same. So the other side of that long spreadsheet is how many people ordered on credit. We had quite an anomaly here, 31%, 33%, when my average is only at 16. These are important things to know. Why did Condé Nast, well, this publication doesn't exist, but why did my credit rate go up? Well, I found out, and you know, my credit went up. That made this list wildly less profitable for me. Why? So I go back to my list broker and I say, what the hell happened? He calls their broker, who calls them. They started doing a soft offer. They started doing bill me's. You know, so these are all the metrics that you need to look at Might not have it, your offer may be exactly the same, but the list that you're using may have changed their offer, may have changed their target. And if you're not paying attention to exactly what you took and why, your mailings could go to hell in a handbasket. So it's very important that you understand the impact of all of these changes that other people do in their business that impact your business. What the pay up was, net percent, the indexes are very important. You may have a mailing that underperforms because this is an old story. I dropped a mailing right as the O.J. Simpson chase went on and all of the hubbub around that. Those mailings crashed and burned, okay? So it was a bad timing. I mailed right into the trial, the whole bit, my fault. But what an index does is tell you how a list performs relative to all the other lists. So if you're looking at a list and you're like, my response rate dropped in half, well, relative to what? Relative to everything dropping in half, which is what happened in that mailing, or relative to that list underperforming. So having an index is very important. Loaded cost per order, loaded profitability, and what your package description was. So very basic direct mail, but you have to pay very close attention to each of these components and what changed and why it happened. So this is something that we do. We tested an offer. This is what I was talking about at the beginning when I said you have to know what your goal is. You can use this in email, you can use this in direct mail, you can use this in whatever channel you're in. So we were trying to figure out, are we better off with a lower price and more bodies, or a higher price and fewer bodies? Okay, Andy would say a higher price and fewer bodies because he's ROI driven. Yep. That's what he wants. My business, we have huge cross-sell. So am I actually better off? Am I at least going to break even if I bring in more bodies, but I don't get as much money? This was a web test because we had been selling our newsletters on the website at the full sticker price instead of at the discounted new subscriber price. And if our subscribers could go on and get this lower price, how many more bodies could I bring in? And then we'll work out some system to keep our current subscribers from trying to renew. So we ran a test, the control version, which was the higher price, here's an $84 average, versus the test where we got 3,000 bodies at a lower price of $46, okay? So this was the results. We got about a third more people, which means in our first year I got $170,000 out of these guys. In our first year here, I got $147,000. So following sort of this crazy spreadsheet, and I'm not going to drag you through it, I took those bodies, those 2,000 bodies, ran them through our conversion rate. Those 3,000 bodies, used the same conversion rate because I don't know. I don't really know what they're going to do, so I might as well give it a shot. Ran it through the same conversion rate, did all the math in dollars and bodies, rates. You're following me? You start at 3,000 bodies, 1,400 go to here. You renew 50%, you get 700. You renew 70%, you get 499. So you're following sort of what I did. Did the math on the money. Step ups for these cheap people because we stepped them up in price. These guys are already at the high price, so they don't get a step up. At the end of the day, I have 3,982 bodies. At the end of the day down here, I now have served 6,228 people. So I'm adding up all of my bodies across. How many people have I actually served? So I have a lot more bodies down here. The money is super close. $336,000, $334,000, and my revenue per subscriber, my annual revenue per sub, $84, $54. So I've boosted up. This one stayed the same, no step up. This one increased and ended up with an average of $54. So cash-wise, right in the door, I'm making the same money. So for us, there was no harm in offering a discounted price and bringing in a lot more bodies. And I know because of all that analysis I showed you earlier that I'm going to be able to take every one of these 6,000 people and offer them something else and sell them something. So this is this is an analysis that you can do. It may not be this offer. It may be one on a 2-year offer, 2-year versus 1 year. Is it better to have a 2-year offer and take a lower amount of money? Is it better to have a 1-year offer and take a higher amount of money? In our case, same process, super ugly spreadsheet, I understand. But in our case, offering a 2-year price, which was cheaper for the 2nd year, ended up bringing us more cash. So we have stuck with a 2-year offer. This is the So when you're contemplating what you're going to offer, why you're going to offer it, this is the sort of math you have to do ahead of time. You have to make some assumptions on your metrics, and then when you actually test it, you have to drop those new results in and see if it worked out the way you thought it would. And very quickly, campaign analysis, and then I'm done. I'll turn it back to Andy for any wrap-ups. When we do promotions, direct mail promotions, whatever, we put all of our costs in. We're very specific about our campaigns, and we analyze our email campaigns with less grief because there's not as many moving parts. But for a direct mail campaign, how many house lists, outside lists, test lists, what's our mail volume, response rates by type, what our orders were by type, what our credit rates were by type. All of this gets fed into our budget model and circulation model, by the way. What our pay-up rates were by type, house list, outside list, test list. What our net orders were by house, what the response rate was, what our test list response rates were, et cetera, et cetera. Gross and net response rates overall, the cost of mailing for the house list, the outside list, the test list, what our premium costs were, what our net cost per house order, net cost per outside list order, overall cost per order, overall net profit ratio, which is all Andy cares about. So if he doesn't get over $1, he's not doing any of that. And I actually made one over $1. So that's the biggies, your gross and net response rate, your net profit ratio, and then of course I usually do some back-end calculations from a budget model that also show me how many people took the 1-year offer, how many people took a 2-year offer, what our average term is, and that all matters when you do your circulation modeling and your budget modeling so you know what you're going to earn for how long. So go ahead, Andy, I'm done.
Okay, so certainly, we certainly do all this kind of campaign analysis on individual campaigns. We do it on a product by product basis. We do lots of mixed campaigns where we've got lots of products in a single campaign, and we analyze those as well. And the previous slides, Denise was almost kind of talking about a lifetime value proposition on a customer, and we break down both on the institutional level lifetime value, which runs out for us on a very long term because people leave, but other people come in. So we run some pretty extensive metrics on the lifetime value of Seton Hall to us, but also individuals who are at Seton Hall and do the purchasing. And for us, a lot of that needs to be done by hand. You need to go into the system and dig it out because we just don't have a system that is going to figure out, well, this person left the director of residence life, but this new person came into the director of residence life position and started purchasing product in their place. So, but again, we're a small company and we're able to track over individual accounts. Well, we know that, Stacy Smith left, but Tom Jones came in. But those are very, very important metrics for us because if Stacy left and Tom came in but didn't start purchasing, well, that becomes a significant decline in revenue, at least on that individual account. So again, we don't have a system that's going to pull that out, but we need to be on top of that metric. So again, kind of that fundamental difference between a larger company that has systems that can pull it out.